Your back hurts. Your eyes are strained. You are tired in a way that sleep does not fully fix. You eat. You exercise sometimes. You have access to medicine that would have seemed miraculous to every human who ever lived before you. And yet, something is wrong. For roughly 300,000 years, your ancestors did not have doctors, gyms, dentists, or nutritionists. They had no concept of a balanced diet, no understanding of germ theory, no supplements, no sleep tracking apps. And the bones say they were healthier than you. Not in every way, not by every measure, but in the ways that matter most: the strength of their bodies, the density of their bones, the sharpness of their teeth, the quality of their movement, the depth of their sleep. Your hunter-gatherer ancestors were operating at a level of physical function that most modern humans never reach. That is not a romantic myth. That is what the skeletal record shows. When biological anthropologist Timothy Ryan and his colleagues analyzed the bone density of prehistoric hunter-gatherers against modern sedentary humans, the difference was stark. The bones of ancient humans, people who lived tens of thousands of years ago, were denser, thicker, and more structurally robust than the bones of people alive today. Not because of genetics, because of use, because their bodies were loaded, stressed, and challenged every single day in ways that modern life almost never replicates. Your bones respond to the demands you place on them. When you walk, carry, climb, and lift, your skeleton thickens in response. When you sit for 8, 10, 12 hours a day, it doesn't. The human skeleton is not a fixed structure. It is a living tissue that builds itself around the life you live. Your ancestors lived a life that built extraordinary skeletons. Most modern humans live a life that quietly erodes theirs. But bone density is just the beginning. Look at the teeth. Before agriculture, before the cultivation of wheat, rice, and sugar crops that began roughly 10,000 to 12,000 years ago, tooth decay was remarkably rare. Paleoanthropologist Christina Warrener, whose research at the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology has transformed our understanding of ancient diet, found that hunter-gatherer populations showed very low rates of dental caries, cavities, compared to early farming populations. The moment humans began eating domesticated grains, which break down into sugars that feed mouth bacteria, tooth decay exploded. It became one of the most common diseases in agricultural history. Your ancestors before farming did not carry toothbrushes. They also barely needed them. Their diet was the reason. And their diet was extraordinary. Your hunter-gatherer ancestors did not eat 3 meals a day. They did not eat the same food every day. Across a single season, a typical hunter-gatherer band in an environment like sub-Saharan Africa consumed between 50 and 150 different plant species, along with fish, game, eggs, honey, bone marrow, and organ meats. Organ meats, the liver, heart, kidney, are among the most nutrient-dense foods that exist. They contain concentrations of vitamins and minerals that modern processed food cannot approach. Your ancestors ate them regularly, not as a delicacy, but because they were the first parts consumed after a kill. Richard Wrangham, a primatologist and biological anthropologist at Harvard University, has argued that the human body evolved specifically around cooked food. That cooking, which your ancestors had been practicing for at least 400,000 years, fundamentally shaped the size of the human gut, the structure of the human jaw, and the energy available to the human brain. Your digestive system is not designed for raw food or for highly processed food. It is designed for whole cooked food, varied and seasonal. That is what your ancestors ate. That is what your biology still expects. And then there is movement, not exercise. Movement. There is a difference, and it matters more than almost anything else in understanding why your ancestors were healthier than you. Exercise is something you schedule. It is a block of time you carve out of a sedentary day to counteract the damage that sedentary day is doing. Movement is something you cannot avoid when your survival depends on it. Your ancestors did not work out for an hour and then sit still for the rest of the day. They moved continuously, at low intensity, interspersed with short bursts of high intensity, exactly the pattern that research on cardiovascular health now identifies as optimal for the human heart. Evolutionary biologist Daniel Lieberman of Harvard University, who has spent decades studying the biomechanics of the human body in the context of evolution, found that hunter-gatherers in populations like the Hadza of Tanzania, one of the last remaining traditional hunter-gatherer groups on Earth, walk between 9 and 15 kilometers per day on average. They carry loads, they dig, they climb. They squat for long periods, which maintains hip flexor flexibility and ankle mobility that most modern adults have entirely lost. Lieberman's research has shown that this kind of varied, low-level physical activity is not just beneficial for health, it is what the human body was built for, and the absence of it is one of the primary drivers of modern chronic disease. Your body was not designed to sit in a chair. It was designed to squat, walk, carry, climb, and occasionally sprint. Every chair you sit in, every elevator you take, every hour you spend still is a small deviation from what your physiology expects. Over a lifetime, those small deviations accumulate into the chronic pain, metabolic dysfunction, and cardiovascular disease that now define modern health. But here is where it gets complicated. Your ancestors were also healthier because of something that had nothing to do with their bodies. It had to do with their minds and their relationships. Anthropologist Robin Dunbar, whose research on social group size has become one of the most cited findings in evolutionary psychology, proposed that the human brain evolved specifically to manage the complex social relationships of a group of roughly 150 people. That number, now known as Dunbar's number, represents the cognitive limit of meaningful social connection that the human brain can maintain. Your ancestors lived within that limit. They were embedded in a small, stable, face-to-face community where they knew everyone, and everyone knew them. They had purpose. They had belonging. They had the kind of deep social connection that research consistently identifies as one of the strongest predictors of long-term health and longevity. Stronger than diet, stronger than exercise, stronger even than whether you smoke. Modern humans are, by the standards of human evolution, extraordinarily isolated. You may have hundreds of digital contacts and almost no one who would notice within 48 hours if something happened to you. That isolation is not a personality failure. It is a structural mismatch between the social environment your brain was built for and the social environment modern life provides. And the health consequences are measurable. Chronic loneliness raises cortisol levels, suppresses immune function, and increases the risk of early death by roughly 26%. According to research by psychologist Julianne Holt-Lundstad at Brigham Young University. Your ancestors were not lonely. They could not be. The structure of their lives made isolation nearly impossible, and they slept differently. Jerome Siegel, a sleep researcher at UCLA, conducted a landmark study published in 2015 in the journal Current Biology, in which he monitored the sleep patterns of 3 traditional hunter-gatherer populations: the Hadza of Tanzania, the San of Namibia, and the Tsimane of Bolivia. What he found overturned almost everything sleep science thought it knew. These groups slept an average of 6.4 hours per night, less than the 8 hours modern sleep science recommends. But their sleep was almost perfectly timed to the natural light cycle. They fell asleep several hours after sunset as temperatures dropped, and they woke naturally at sunrise. Their sleep was consolidated, efficient, and deeply restorative in ways that modern fragmented sleep, interrupted by artificial light, screens, and irregular schedules, is not. Your ancestors did not struggle to sleep. Sleep was not a problem to be optimized or a deficit to be managed. It was simply what happened when the sun went down and the temperature fell. The human body knows exactly how to sleep. It has been doing it for 300,000 years. What it does not know how to do is fall asleep under artificial blue light after staring at a screen for 6 hours. So why are you less healthy than your ancestors? Not because you lack access to good food, medicine, or information. You have more of all 3 than any human who ever lived. You are less healthy because the environment you live in is mismatched to the body you inherited. Your skeleton was built for daily physical loading. Your metabolism was built for dietary variety. Your gut was built for whole, cooked, unprocessed food. Your cardiovascular system was built for continuous low-intensity movement. Your brain was built for a small, stable, face-to-face community. Your sleep system was built for darkness and falling temperatures. Modern life provides almost none of these things by default. The gap between the body you have, so shaped by 300,000 years of evolution, and the world you live in is not a medical problem. It is not a willpower problem. It is a design mismatch built into the structure of modern civilization itself. Your back still hurts. Your eyes are still strained. You are still tired in a way that sleep does not fully fix. And somewhere in your body, at a level deeper than thought, your ancient skeleton remembers what it was built for